Ma'am, this is an emergency room for real emergencies. If you're here for a prescription refill, the community clinic opens at 8 a.m. Nurse Rachel Morrison didn't even look up from her computer screen as she dismissed the black woman, clutching her chest in the lobby of Riverside Memorial Hospital's platinum-level emergency department. The woman's designer coat meant nothing. Her measured breathing meant nothing. Her calm request for an EKG meant nothing. What mattered was what Rachel saw. Another person who didn't belong in the most expensive ER in the city. Dr. Amara Sterling, one of the world's foremost cardiovascular surgeons, felt the crushing pressure spreading across her chest like a vice tightening around her heart. She'd performed over 3,000 open-heart surgeries. She'd pioneered the Sterling technique for minimally invasive valve replacement. She'd saved lives on 4 continents. But tonight, in the very hospital where she donated $47 million for the cardiac wing that bore her name, she was just another black woman being told she didn't look sick enough to matter. Have you ever known exactly what was happening to your body, while everyone around you refused to believe you? That's where real terror lives. The dismissal. I'm experiencing acute chest pain radiating to my left arm, Amara said quietly, her voice steady despite the crushing sensation. Shortness of breath, diaphoresis, possible myocardial infarction. I need immediate cardiac assessment. Rachel's eyes finally lifted from her screen, annoyance flickering across her face. Ma'am, everyone who comes here thinks they're having a heart attack. You're probably just having anxiety. Have you tried deep breathing? The waiting room held 12 people. An elderly white man sat reading a magazine despite arriving after Amara. A young white woman scrolled through her phone, waiting for x-rays on her sprained ankle. They'd both been triaged immediately. Amara had been standing at the desk for 9 minutes. I understand triage protocols, Amara replied, her medical training keeping her voice level even as her heart rhythm became increasingly irregular. But I'm showing classic symptoms of I've been a nurse for 7 years. Rachel interrupted. I think I know the difference between a real emergency and someone looking for attention. She glanced at Amara's simple jeans and sweater. Besides, you don't exactly fit the profile. The profile. The words hung in the air like poison. Amara's Apple Watch buzzed with an alert. Heart rate, 142 BPM. Please, Amara said, fighting to keep her composure as another wave of pain radiated through her chest. I need you to take my vitals, now. Rachel sighed theatrically.
Fine, but you're going to be waiting a while. We have actual emergencies to deal with.
She gestured vaguely toward the packed waiting room. Have a seat. We'll call you when we're ready. But here's what Nurse Morrison didn't know. The woman she'd just dismissed had spent the last hour in a board of directors meeting on the 7th floor of this very building. The crushing chest pain had started during budget discussions about expanding the cardiac unit Amara herself had funded. Amara found a seat between a mother comforting a feverish child and a construction worker with a bandaged hand. Her watch showed another alert. High heart rate, 156 BPM. She opened her phone and typed a message to her assistant. Experiencing cardiac event at Riverside ER. Being ignored. Don't intervene yet. Document everything. The response came immediately. Dr. Sterling. I can have Dr. Chen there in 4 minutes. No. Let this play out. Need to see how deep this goes. 15 minutes passed. The elderly white man was called back for his possible indigestion. 20 minutes. The young woman returned from x-rays, laughing about her clumsy fall at yoga. 30 minutes. Amara's skin grew clammy. The pain intensified. A different nurse, Jennifer Park, emerged from the treatment area. Thomas Morrison, she called. A white man in his 30s stood up. He'd arrived 12 minutes after Amara, complaining of a headache. Amara stood slowly, fighting dizziness. She approached the triage desk where Rachel was now chatting with a colleague about weekend plans. Excuse me, Amara said softly. I've been waiting 32 minutes with active chest pain. My heart rate is 158 and irregular. Ma'am, I told you we'd call you. Rachel's voice carried clear irritation now. You need to sit down and wait your turn like everyone else. My turn was 32 minutes ago, when I presented with textbook STEMI symptoms. Rachel's colleague, an older nurse named Patricia, glanced at Amara with poorly concealed disdain. Honey, if you were really having a heart attack, you wouldn't be standing here arguing with us. Real cardiac patients look sick. Real cardiac patients. The phrase echoed in Amara's mind as she felt her left ventricle struggling against the blocked coronary artery she knew was killing her heart muscle cell by cell. She'd seen this scenario countless times in her career, but always from the other side of the stethoscope. 45 minutes. Amara's vision began to blur at the edges. She pulled out her phone and opened the voice recorder. "This is Dr. Amara Sterling," she said quietly into the device. "Sunday, November 17th, 9:47 p.m. I'm in Riverside Memorial Emergency Department, experiencing acute coronary syndrome. I've been symptomatic for approximately 90 minutes. Despite clear presentation of STEMI symptoms, I've been denied triage for 45 minutes. Heart rate 162, irregular. Pain level 8 out of 10, radiating to jaw and left arm. Classic diaphoresis. Shortness of breath increasing." She paused, another wave of pain forcing her to grip the armrest. "Triage nurse Rachel Morrison has refused assessment based on," Amara's voice caught, "based on her judgment that I don't look sick enough. I've observed 6 patients, all white, receive immediate care for less acute presentations." A young resident, Dr. Marcus Webb, walked through the waiting area. Amara recognized him from Grand Rounds, where she'd been a guest lecturer 3 months ago. He didn't recognize her. She'd been in full surgical attire then, and he'd been in the back row of a 200-person auditorium. "Dr. Webb," Amara called out softly. He glanced over, his expression polite but hurried. "I'm sorry, but you'll need to check with the triage desk. I'm just passing through." "I'm a physician," Amara said. "I'm experiencing an acute MI. Please." "Ma'am," Webb said, his tone shifting to that particular condescension reserved for difficult patients. "I understand you're concerned, but the nursing staff are highly trained in triage. If you were really having a myocardial infarction, they would have caught it." He walked away before she could respond. At this point, you might be wondering, why didn't she just tell them who she was? Why didn't she demand attention? But here's what people don't understand about systemic bias. Revealing her credentials would just make them think she was lying. A black woman claiming to be a world-renowned surgeon? That would only make things worse. 60 minutes. Amara's phone buzzed with increasingly urgent messages from her team. Her assistant had been tracking her vitals through her smartwatch's cloud sync. "Dr. Sterling, your O2 sat is 91%. I'm calling 911. Not yet. Need more evidence. You could die. I've lived through worse discrimination. This ends tonight. 75 minutes. The pain reached a crescendo that even Amara's formidable self-control couldn't mask. She stood, intending to approach the desk one final time, and felt her legs buckle, the world tilted sideways. Amara Sterling, surgeon to presidents and premiers, collapsed in the waiting room of the hospital she'd built. And here's where it gets truly shocking. Even then, the response wasn't what you'd expect. The sound of her body hitting the linoleum floor brought immediate reactions, but not the ones that should have come. "Oh, great," Rachel muttered, looking up from her computer. "Patricia, we've got another one faking it for attention." Patricia approached slowly, no urgency in her steps. "Ma'am, you need to get up. This is inappropriate behavior." Amara lay on the floor, conscious but unable to move, feeling the distinctive sensation of her heart's electrical system misfiring. Ventricular tachycardia. She had minutes before it progressed to ventricular fibrillation. A patient in the waiting room. A middle-aged black man named Jerome Washington stood abruptly. "Are you serious? She needs help. Call a code." "Sir, sit down or you'll be asked to leave," Patricia warned. "We're trained professionals. We know the difference between a real emergency and performance art." "Performance art?" Jerome pulled out his phone and started recording. "Y'all are really gonna let this woman die on your floor? Sir, put that phone away immediately." But Jerome didn't stop filming. The young mother with the feverish child was recording too. The construction worker. 3 others. Rachel finally approached Amara, kneeling down with obvious reluctance. "Ma'am, I need you to stop this behavior and return to your seat," Amara managed to whisper. "Left pocket. ID badge." "What?" Rachel leaned closer. "My pocket." Rachel reached into Amara's coat pocket, expecting to find a bus pass or perhaps a clinic appointment card. What she pulled out made her freeze. A platinum-level staff badge with the hospital's highest clearance level. Sterling. Amara, MD. FAS, Director of Cardiovascular Surgery, attending Physician Board of Director. The silence that followed was absolute. But what happened next would change everything. Not just for one hospital, but for emergency medicine across the country. The revelation, Rachel's face went chalk white. The badge slipped from her fingers and clattered to the floor. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my God, Patricia. This is Dr. Sterling, the Dr. Sterling." Patricia snatched up the badge, her hands trembling. The woman lying on the floor wasn't just a doctor. She was the doctor. The cardiovascular surgeon whose revolutionary techniques were taught in medical schools worldwide. The woman whose name was literally carved in marble on the building's cardiac wing. The Sterling Center for Advanced Cardiac Care. "Get Dr. Chen," Rachel screamed, years of dismissive calm evaporating instantly. "Get everyone. Code blue in the waiting room." The emergency response was instantaneous. Within 30 seconds, 8 staff members converged. Dr. Marcus Webb, who had brushed past Amara minutes earlier, went pale as he recognized her face. "Oh, Jesus," he breathed. That's Dr. Sterling. I saw her lecture at the cardiac symposium. She pioneered the technique I used in surgery yesterday." Portable monitors appeared. EKG leads attached. An oxygen mask covered Amara's face. Dr. James Chen, the ER director, burst through the doors. His expression shifted from professional concern to absolute horror as he recognized his patient. "How long?" he demanded. "How long has she been here?" 92 minutes, Jerome Washington called from where he stood filming. "I've got it all on video." Every minute she was ignored. Chen's face went from white to crimson. 92 minutes? With chest pain? "We thought," Rachel started. "Get her to Cardiac 1, Chen snapped. "Call interventional cardiology. Get the cath lab ready. And someone find out who the hell denied triage to DACT. Amara Sterling." As they rushed Amara toward the treatment area, her eyes flickered open. Through the oxygen mask, she managed 3 words that would change everything. Record, everything, evidence. Dr. Chen understood immediately. This wasn't just a medical emergency. This was a reckoning. But here's what nobody knew yet. Dr. Sterling had been recording everything through her smartwatch. Every dismissal, every condescending word, every delay. And her legal team had been compiling similar cases for months. This hospital was about to become the epicenter of the largest medical discrimination investigation in state history. The treatment, Cardiac Unit 1, was a masterpiece of medical technology. Every piece of equipment bore a small plaque, donated by the Sterling Foundation. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, head of interventional cardiology, arrived within minutes. She'd trained under Amara, considered her a mentor and a friend. "Talk to me," Rodriguez demanded, scrubbing in. "Proximal LAD occlusion," Dr. Chen reported, reading the angiogram. "STEMI confirmed. She's been symptomatic for at least 90 minutes based on her own recording." Rodriguez's jaw tightened. 90 minutes? In our ER? She was in the waiting room, denied triage. That's impossible. She would have presented with textbook. Rodriguez stopped, understanding washing over her. "They didn't triage her at all, did they?" Chen said nothing. His silence was answer enough. The procedure to clear Amara's blocked coronary artery took 37 minutes. She remained conscious throughout, her medical training allowing her to follow every step of her own cardiac catheterization. "You saved my life," Amara said softly, as Rodriguez completed the stent placement. "You saved your own life by getting here when you did," Rodriguez replied. Another 30 minutes and, Dr. Sterling, what happened in that waiting room? Exactly what happens to black patients every day, Amara responded. I just had the credentials to prove it. The next morning, Dr. Sterling called an emergency meeting, not in a hospital conference room, but in the boardroom of the Sterling Foundation. What the hospital administrators didn't know was that this meeting had been planned for months. Tonight's events had just accelerated the timeline. The reckoning, the boardroom of the Sterling Foundation occupied the entire top floor of the medical research building Amara had built. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the hospital where, just 12 hours earlier, she'd collapsed on the waiting room floor. Present at the table, Amara, discharged against medical advice, her legal team, 3 civil rights attorneys, the state health commissioner, 2 investigative journalists, and representatives from the Department of Health and Human Services. Ladies and gentlemen, Amara began, her voice steady despite the fresh surgical site in her femoral artery. What you're about to see represents 6 months of systematic documentation of medical discrimination at Riverside Memorial Hospital. She clicked a remote, the screen filled with data. Riverside Memorial ER triage times by race, 2024. Black patients, average wait, 94 minutes. White patients, average wait, 23 minutes. Latino patients, average wait, 67 minutes. Asian patients, average wait 31 minutes. Pain management, disparities. Black patients with acute pain receiving opioid analgesics, 23%. White patients with acute pain receiving opioid analgesics, 74%. Cardiac symptom response times. Black patients presenting with chest pain, average 73 minutes to EKG. White patients presenting with chest pain, average 11 minutes to EKG. These statistics, Amara continued, represent systematic, documented bias that costs lives. But statistics don't tell the human story. She clicked again. Video footage appeared. Her own collapse in the waiting room, recorded by Jerome Washington's phone. The room watched in stunned silence as the scene unfolded. Amara's polite requests, Rachel's dismissive responses, Patricia's contempt, Dr. Webb's condescension, the words, "You don't look sick enough," echoed through the boardroom's speakers. 92 minutes, the state health commissioner said quietly. Dr. Sterling, you could have died. Many have, Amara replied. Last year alone, Riverside Memorial saw 17 cases of black patients experiencing delayed cardiac care. 3 died. All presented with classic symptoms. All were initially dismissed. She pulled up another file. This is Shanice Williams, age 42, complained of chest pain for 2 hours in the Riverside ER, told she was probably having anxiety, found dead in the parking lot 30 minutes after leaving. Autopsy showed massive myocardial infarction. The image of a smiling black woman in a graduation cap appeared on screen. This is Marcus Thompson, age 38, basketball coach, father of 3, waited 90 minutes with crushing chest pain, given antacids and sent home, died in his sleep that night. His widow sued. Riverside settled quietly for an undisclosed amount. Image after image, story after story. The accumulation was devastating. The settlement payments alone, Amara's lead attorney noted, have cost Riverside $23 million over 3 years, but they've never addressed the root cause: systematic bias in triage and treatment. The health commissioner leaned forward. Dr. Sterling, what are you proposing? Complete systemic reform, Amara replied. Starting tonight. She stood and walked to the window, looking down at the hospital. Her hospital, in more ways than one. I'm the largest single donor to Riverside Memorial. The Sterling Foundation has contributed $47 million over the past decade. The cardiac wing bears my name. I'm a board member with significant voting power on operational policy. She turned back to the room. As of this morning, I'm leveraging every bit of that influence to implement the most comprehensive anti-discrimination protocol in American healthcare history. The transformation, within 48 hours, the Sterling Protocol was implemented at Riverside Memorial. Mandatory triage recording. Every patient interaction recorded and reviewed by an independent oversight board. Quarterly audits analyzing triage times by demographic factors. 2. Pain assessment standardization objective. Pain scales. Eliminating subjective judgments about who looks like they're in pain. Automatic consultation triggered for any patient reporting pain above 710. 3. Cardiac symptom response protocol. Any patient presenting with chest pain, shortness of breath, or cardiac-related symptoms receives immediate EKG and vital signs assessment, no exceptions. Maximum wait time, 10 minutes. 4. Demographic triage audits. Real-time dashboards, tracking wait times, pain management, and treatment decisions by race, gender, and insurance status. Automatic alerts for disparities exceeding 15%. 5. Bias recognition training. Mandatory monthly training for all ER staff featuring real cases, including Amara's own, demonstrating how implicit bias affects medical decision-making. But Amara didn't stop at one hospital. The press conference she held 3 days later went viral. A black woman in a hospital bed, speaking calmly about the systemic discrimination that nearly cost her life. "I'm privileged," she told the cameras. "I had the resources to survive my own hospital's bias. I had the credentials to prove I wasn't faking it. I had the legal team to demand accountability. Most people don't." She paused, her voice strengthening. Shanice Williams didn't have those resources. Marcus Thompson didn't. The 17 other black patients who died waiting for care at Riverside didn't. This ends now. The Sterling Protocol became national news within a week. Within a month, 47 hospitals across the country had adopted it. Within 6 months, it became the model for federal healthcare discrimination prevention guidelines. But the most significant change happened to the people who had dismissed Amara that night. Accountability and redemption. Nurse Rachel Morrison sat in the mandatory bias training session, watching footage of herself dismissing Dr. Sterling. The shame was physical, crushing. "I didn't think I was racist," she told the facilitator, her voice breaking. "I thought I was just doing triage, prioritizing based on who looked sickest." "And who taught you what looking sick means?" the facilitator asked gently. Rachel had no answer. She wasn't fired. Amara specifically requested that the nurses involved be retained, but transformed. "Firing them accomplishes nothing," Amara explained to the hospital board. "They're symptoms of a sick system, not the disease itself. Train them, show them the data, make them part of the solution." Rachel Morrison became one of the Sterling Protocol's most effective advocates. She traveled to hospitals across the country, sharing her story. The story of how implicit bias nearly killed one of the world's greatest surgeons. "I looked at Dr. Sterling, and I saw someone who didn't belong in our platinum ER." Rachel would tell audiences, her voice steady with hard-earned wisdom. "I saw her clothes, her calm demeanor, her blackness, and I made assumptions. Those assumptions nearly killed her." Dr. Marcus Webb implemented the Sterling Protocol in his own practice with religious devotion. He published a paper on medical bias that cited Amara's case as the catalyst for examining his own prejudices. "We're taught to trust our clinical judgment," he wrote. "But what happens when that judgment is corrupted by bias we don't even recognize?" Dr. Sterling showed us that being well-intentioned isn't enough. We need systematic safeguards against our own prejudices. The impact. 6 months later. The Sterling Foundation's quarterly report showed measurable change. Triage time disparity reduced from 71 minutes to 8 minutes across demographic groups. Pain management equity. Black patients receiving appropriate pain medication up from 23% to 81%. Cardiac care response. Average time to EKG for chest pain, 9 minutes, down from 73 for black patients. Patient satisfaction. Black patient satisfaction scores up 156%. Mortality rates, 0 cases of delayed cardiac care deaths at Riverside Memorial since protocol implementation. But the numbers that mattered most to Amara were different. Jerome Washington, the man who had recorded her collapse, started a patient advocacy organization. They'd helped 47 families document and address medical discrimination. Shanice Williams' daughter entered medical school, determined to become the cardiologist her mother never got to see. Marcus Thompson's widow became a board member of the Sterling Foundation, ensuring other families wouldn't experience her loss. 1 year after her near-death experience, Dr. Amara Sterling stood in the newly renamed Riverside Memorial's waiting room. The space had been redesigned. Comfortable seating, prominent displays of patient rights, real-time triage time boards showing wait times by condition, not by appearance. A young black woman approached the triage desk, clutching her chest. "I'm having chest pain," she said softly, radiating to my arm. "I'm scared." The nurse, a new hire named Jennifer Chen, responded immediately. "Let's get you in a wheelchair right now. I'm taking your vitals while we walk you back to cardiac assessment. You did exactly the right thing coming in." No questions about insurance. No judgments about appearance. No assumptions about who deserves immediate care. Amara watched from the corner, a slight smile crossing her face. This was the change that mattered. Not revenge, not punishment, but transformation. Her phone buzzed. A text from the state health commissioner. Sterling Protocol just passed statewide mandate. Every hospital in the state adopts it by Q2 next year. "You changed everything, Amara," she typed back. "We changed it. The patients who died, the families who fought, the nurses who learned to see their bias. This is everyone's victory." As she left the hospital, Amara passed the marble plaque that had been there for years, the Sterling Center for Advanced Cardiac Care. Below it, a new plaque had been added, dedicated to every patient who was dismissed, doubted, or denied care. Your lives matter. Your pain is real. You deserve to be believed. The revolution hadn't been televised. It had been documented, analyzed, and systematically implemented. One discriminatory encounter at a time, one bias training at a time, one saved life at a time. Dr. Amara Sterling walked into the evening air, her heart literally and figuratively stronger than ever. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it arrives with data, determination, and the quiet power of someone who refused to die quietly. Have you, or someone you love, experienced medical discrimination? Share your story in the comments. Your experience matters. Your voice can change systems. Because sometimes the most powerful response isn't revenge, it's revolution. Remember, your pain is real. You deserve to be believed. Don't give up.